Hello, friends, and welcome to my 100 subscribers special. I know it's been a long time since I had reached the milestone of 100 subscribers on my channel. Life got really busy for me around the time that I announced that I was doing something special to celebrate. But I did make a promise to all you wonderful subscribers that I would do something special, and that time is now. So welcome to part 1 of my 100 subscribers special, the Q&A video. And if you want to check out part 2 of the special after you've watched this video, check the link in the description below. And if you're coming from having watched that video, I thank you very much for watching it, and also praise your rebellious nature for watching things out of order. Now, before I begin the video proper, I want to give a special thanks to the viewers who submitted questions for my special. I will admit that trying to get 50 questions from a small viewer base, as well as my comment section being the only place to have questions given to me, was probably not the best idea. In the future, I'll have to explore more options if I want something like this to be more successful, but I promise to answer 50 questions, and I'm going to do just that. So to the users Strobo308, PowerPlay9422, Xander on Autopilot 1369, YTNEYH, Maria Sky 7579, and Wafflin Warden 1551, thank you very much for your questions. And for the remaining questions, I'll do my best to make them as fun, entertaining, and enlightening as I can. Now, without further ado, let's begin the Q&A special. So I figured the best place to begin this would be to answer some questions about myself. So why don't we kick it off with this? Link the Goron asks, I noticed in your videos you have not once referred to yourself by a name other than me, not even your channel name. Is there a reason for that? Fine question to start off this special, and there actually are reasons for that. 2 of them, in fact. First, and quite expectedly, I choose not to refer to myself by my given name for privacy reasons. As you might expect, keeping personal information private is a good thing to do, especially for small-time content creators. There might be a day where I will say my actual name on this platform, but I'll only do that if I feel comfortable doing it. As to the other reason, this one's a little more funny, I guess? For anyone who has watched my earliest content, I started with a playthrough of Pokemon Red, but when I was doing that, I had not actually created the channel yet. I hadn't even come up with a channel name to go by. The name for my channel was created after I finished making the first videos and was ready to upload them. At that point, it was already habit not to refer to myself by a name in my content. Now, for comedic timing, I did start using me as a moniker to playfully talk to my future self as I was editing, and I quite liked the gag, so I've stuck with calling myself me whenever I refer to myself, even beyond editing purposes. But if there is anyone out there who is wondering what name I would use, be it Rye, Storm, Rystorm, or any other similar name, I'm not too picky as to what I would get called, but I am partial to Storm, so hopefully that answers your question. But speaking of the name Storm, Grog asks, how did you come up with your channel name of Rystorm Gaming? So back in the day, there was an online game I used to play called Pangea, also called Albatross 18 if there is anyone out there who remembers that name. It was an online multiplayer fantasy-themed golf game that I enjoyed playing for many years. It was also the very first online game I had ever played. And of course, when it comes to online games, you need a username. And the name I chose to use was Stormcloud, a combination of my childhood nickname of Cloud, no, not the protagonist of Final Fantasy VII, I hadn't even played the game until 2020, but I will add that I really enjoyed the game and was glad that I played it, and Storm, which was added to help the name sound more complete. As time went on, the Storm nickname was used more and more, so I began to use the name whenever it came to online stuff. Plus, I quite liked the nickname. So when it came time to make the channel name, I knew I wanted to use Storm in it somewhere, but I wanted to add something more. And eventually, I settled on adding Rye to the name. I liked how, if you take the translation of Rye from Japanese, you get Thunderstorm Gaming, a name that does sound pretty cool to me. Plus, I think it rolls off the tongue nicely. So I was happy to give my channel the name of Rystorm Gaming. Okay, we've had some big questions so far, so let's do some quick questions for now, starting with this one. Sad Troop Leader asks, what is your favorite color? I'm a big fan of blue, mostly nice bright sky blue colors. Little Hero 515 asks, what is your favorite animal? My favorite animals are cats. If I was asked what specific breed of cat I like the most, it would be Maine Coon cats. I love how big they are and their cute faces and fluffy fur coats. I'd hug them all day if I could. Astral Observer asks, what is your zodiac sign? Mine would be Aquarius. Mask of the Moon asks, what is your favorite season? This might sound surprising because I'm someone who hates being cold, but my favorite season is winter. I've always associated winter with being able to spend time with family for the holidays, and when I'm not trapped in them, I really like to listen to and watch snowstorms. And when you get a nice sunny day after a big snowfall, it is really lovely to see. So yeah, winter is my favorite. Stone Soldier Shiro asks, are you an introvert or an extrovert? I am very much an introvert. It may not seem like that way when I'm doing my videos, but I am very much a shy person in real life. I tend to keep to myself whenever I have the chance, and it takes me some time to get used to new or unfamiliar situations. Now, if I do feel comfortable enough, I will shed my introverted side and be more like how I am when you watch my gameplay videos. It's just breaking the ice that I have a hard time with. So I'm definitely an introvert, but can be more outgoing if I'm with the right crowd. Swamp Bean Daddy asks, if you were a flavor of ice cream, what flavor would you be? If I were an ice cream flavor, I think I would consider myself vanilla ice cream. Sure, it might be the most basic flavor, but there are times when you can't go wrong with a classic. Midnight Moon Dancer asks, are you a morning person or a night owl? If there is one thing that being an adult has taught me, it's that I am definitely a night owl. Most of my days involve me getting up in the morning to go to work and then come home when it's already night. So anything I want to get done for the day happens at night. But on a personal level, I have always liked the evening hours no matter how old I've been, so I would definitely call myself a night owl. Part-time Tree Climber asks, outside of video games, what are some of your other hobbies or interests? My biggest hobby is definitely gaming, but it doesn't just include video games. I also like to play a lot of board games or card games with people whenever I have the chance. Now, as to my hobbies outside of games, I do enjoy going outside and taking long walks or bike rides whenever the weather is nice. I don't do a lot of sports, but I do enjoy playing some sports like bowling, tennis, or even swimming. And if I'm in the mood to exercise my brain, I do love to do puzzles, either regular picture puzzles or logic puzzles like Sudoku. They can be a chance to both relax as well as challenge myself. Okay, that's pretty good for some icebreaker questions about me, so now let's move to some questions about the channel itself. Law of the Garo asks, what made you want to start a Let's Play channel? Alright, time for a history lesson. Now to give some context, I started watching YouTube consistently around 2010, and around that time frame, Let's Plays were starting to become a thing. And I watched a lot of them. So much so that I eventually thought it would be fun to do something like that. Now, I lacked the information or technology to do it properly, but the thought was always there. And that thought was there for a long time. Years, in fact. Now fast forward to the spring of 2019, almost a whole decade later. I had mentioned this thought of doing a Let's Play channel to a bunch of really good friends of mine, and they all thought it would be something that I would be really good at. They said I had the voice and talent to pull it off, and that I could be entertaining at it too. So with their kind words in mind, I started to get some ideas going in my head. So now we move ahead a bit. It's the winter of 2019, almost half a year since I started thinking about this channel. I was slowly researching ideas and tools I could use for making the eventual channel, but of course, I still hadn't set anything in stone. It was at this point where the thoughts of doing this channel were starting to get louder in my head, like my thoughts were telling me to make this a reality. So one day, I finally acted on those thoughts and asked some friends of mine if they wanted to be a part of this. A perfect excuse to get together and play games, and do something fun at the same time. And as far as I remember, everyone I talked to thought it would be a fun idea. So the plan was set. When I was off work for the summer, I'd get all the equipment needed, and I'd finally get something started with the help of my friends. What could possibly go wrong? Then March of 2020 happened, and the world shut down. Now, since I hadn't actually done anything yet to start the channel, it wasn't a real blow to me for actually getting started. But due to not being able to see my friends in person, it did put a real hamper on the thought of doing this. So the idea of doing the channel was shelved for a while, since no one was sure what was going to happen in the world. Now while this was going on, I was still slowly looking into various tools and programs that I could use to make videos. Sure, I wasn't going to be able to do this with my friends, but I knew that I could do it if I put my mind to it. So I slowly but surely acquired all the information I needed and had a plan ready to go. I was going to make this channel myself. And then I realized why I wanted to make this channel. Originally it was, I wanted to make a channel with my friends. This had now turned into, I wanted to make a channel for my friends. If it wasn't for the kind words of my friends, this channel might not even exist right now. It was their words that helped show me that I have the talent and ability to make fun and enjoyable content for others. And on a personal level, it gave me the ability to put something out there for my friends to watch during the pandemic, since it was really difficult for me to see them in person. It was like I was there with them, sitting down on a couch, playing video games, and hanging out with them, just like the old days. Those were the feelings I wanted to convey with my content, both for my friends who inspired me to do this, and for the new friends I've encountered through this channel. That's why I wanted to make this Let's Play channel. In fact, that's a perfect segue into the next question. The Dampest Fins asks, what are some lessons you've learned from doing this channel? Oh, there are many lessons I've learned about myself while doing this. One of the biggest lessons I've learned about myself actually has to do with my personality. I've certainly gotten better over time, but it is definitely something that holds me back every once in a while. To give some context to my personality, if there was something that needed to be done, I would do it whenever I felt like it needed to be done. Basically, procrastinate until it absolutely needed to be done. But if someone asked me to do it, no matter how busy I was, I would get it done right away. To put this example into words, I struggle to be proactive at getting things done unless someone asks me to do it. And with something like this, where there is no one to tell me to get something done, I have to be proactive to get any sort of content out. And thankfully, I've been getting better at it, as well as applying that to myself with other things in my life. Another lesson that this taught me is that success isn't immediate. When I was initially thinking of making the channel, I thought with how many people watched YouTube, I'd get lots of views on my videos easily. A few thousand, maybe even a few hundred at worst. But I was humbled quickly when my initial videos were struggling to bring in 10 views upon being released. It helped me realize that I needed to work hard at this and that success wasn't immediate. I couldn't just coast on an easy win and reap the benefits right away. I had to keep learning and taking in new tricks and ideas to keep bettering not just my content, but myself as well. Which leads me into my third most important lesson learned: hard work pays off, but only when you put in the effort to do it. I have to be proactive when I do my content. I have to put in the effort to make it the best that I can. And if it isn't successful, pick myself up, learn why it didn't work, and use that knowledge to get even better. Just keep walking forward a step at a time, getting better with each new experience. I'm sure I'll learn many other lessons about myself as I do more for this channel, but as of right now, those 3 lessons are the biggest ones that I've learned, and I'm really glad that I have. Stockpot Toilet Hand asks, how did you come up with the intro and outro to your videos? Now the funny part is that in my first video, I was winging the entire video, including both the intro and the outro. I didn't have a script or any thoughts as to how I was going to open or close my content, so I just said what I said and ran with it. But at the core, I still knew who I was doing this for, and that was my friends. So saying, "Hello, friends," at the start of the video is my way of both thanking my friends and letting them know that I'm here for another fun day of gaming. Now, while my outro has the same thoughts behind it, my first videos were being made in a time where there was a lot of strife in the world, pandemic or otherwise. So the words of "take care," "stay safe," and "have a good day" are just my way of reminding people to take care and be as safe as you can in this unpredictable world, while also trying to wish you all as good of a day as you can have. Because if my friends are having a good day, then I'm having a good day. So yeah, that's kind of the history behind the channel's inception, as well as the reason for my video's intro and outro. Hopefully you found that entertaining. Now on to the next question. Jam Session Chapaz asks, what do you use to make your content? So all of my work is done on my computer, and thankfully I've got a wide array of hardware and software to help me get my videos made. And full disclaimer, I'm not sponsored in any way, so all of the thoughts that I've got here are my own and not influenced in any way. So for hardware, the microphone that I use is a Blue Yeti microphone. I've enjoyed using it and would happily recommend it to anyone looking to purchase a microphone for themselves. And to help me play my games, I have a Mayflash N64 controller adapter to help me use an N64 controller on my computer. It's actually what I use to play a majority of my games, N64 or otherwise. I also use an old Wii U to GameCube controller adapter to help connect my GameCube controller to my computer to help me play GameCube games. Now for software, I use OBS Studio to help capture my gameplay, while I use Audacity to help record my microphone audio. I capture both separately so that I can edit them individually if I need to cut something out of one part but not the other. Then when it comes time to edit the footage into a video, I use Sony Vegas Pro 14. I could upgrade to a newer version, but I've gotten used to this version and will likely continue to use it for the foreseeable future. Now to do my thumbnails and graphical work, I use a program called Affinity Photo. While there are other programs like Adobe Photoshop that would likely be more efficient at handling graphical work, I was drawn to Affinity due to the one-time purchasing fee as opposed to Photoshop's subscription fee service. And over the years, I've gotten used to using Affinity, and I quite like it a lot. And once my videos are done rendering, I use another program called Handbrake to help shrink the file down to a manageable size. And while not integral to the video making process, I do have to shout out 2 other programs that I make use of when filming, mostly when I'm doing randomizers. And those are LiveSplit and EmoTracker. LiveSplit is what I use to capture my times when I'm playing, and EmoTracker is useful for tracking my items, as well as having something visually interesting on screen when there isn't usually anything else. And those are my pieces of hardware and software that I use for my videos. Zubora Gabora asks, how long does it take to edit your videos? The editing process doesn't take me too long in and of itself. A majority of my videos are quite simply putting the gameplay and audio files into my editing software and lining them up right. But in order to make sure everything sounds right, I do watch the entirety of the video from start to finish, which can add some time to the editing process. And if I feel like there's an edit or a joke that I can make in parts of my videos, that can add even more time to the process. So if I had to say how long my editing takes, it can be roughly an hour for some of my shorter videos, to upwards of half a day for my longer videos such as my randomizers. BomberGang12345 asks, will you ever do content like top 10 videos? My content is centered around gameplay videos, but I'm not opposed to the idea of doing content outside of that, such as top 10 videos. I have done more scripted videos on my channel before, so I've definitely had some experience in doing non-gameplay related videos. So if there is any interest in seeing content in addition to my usual gameplay videos, let me know. Maybe it would be fun to have something different alongside my usual gameplay videos. Talkative Owl asks, will you ever stream your content? Streaming my gameplay is something that I would find very interesting and might end up doing at some point well into the future. But my internet is terrible and I don't really have the ability to change that. So it's not really an option that's on the table right now. And as it stands, I much prefer the Let's Play format that I have going on, so I will likely continue to produce content in this manner for now. But I won't say never. Strobo308 asks, what are your goals with the channel? When I started making the channel, I didn't really have a goal in mind for it. I had a purpose, sure, that was to make content for my friends and to have fun. I guess one could say that my goal is to keep making more fun content for my friends and to keep pushing myself and getting better with each new video. But if we are talking about growth goals, while I don't have any specific goals in mind, I do try to aim for new subscriber benchmarks as I keep hitting them. My first major one was the 100 subscriber mark, and now that I've reached it, my next goal would be to reach 500 subscribers. Quite a jump from 100 to 500, but I know that if I can reach 100, I have the power to reach 500. Then after that, it would probably be 1,000. Not sure what I'd do for specials if I reached those yet, might have to keep the thinking cap on for those ones. And that wraps it up for questions related to my channel and its inner workings. Now let's get some video game questions going, and there are a lot, starting with another question from Strobo308. And Strobo asks, what was your first video game? I've got 2 ways to answer this. If we're talking the first video game I ever played, that would be difficult for me to accurately pinpoint. Our family had an NES when I was young, so I don't remember what I played first. But if I had to place a guess, it would probably be one of the Super Mario games. Probably Super Mario Bros. 3. Now, if it was the first game I ever owned, that honor goes to Pokemon Red. And it's a bit of a funny story, actually. My older sibling owned Pokemon Blue, but I was allowed to play it. Now, I would play the game, sure, but I would often delete the data on the game, which led to a few arguments between us. Eventually, it was decided that I would be allowed to buy Pokemon Red, and they would keep Pokemon Blue for themselves. And it all worked out after that. Ah, such a nostalgic memory. Now speaking of memories, we've got Strobo coming through with one more question. And Strobo asks, what's your coolest video game related memory? Oh boy, I'm really having to dig through some blasts from the past today, aren't I? So most of my favorite video game memories are simply from beating video games in general, such as defeating difficult bosses or when I beat a game on a higher difficulty than what I'm used to. Stuff such as beating my rival in Pokemon Red to become champion, or beating a Fire Emblem game on hard mode when I'm so used to playing them on easier difficulties. Basically, achieving something that I had trouble achieving leaves a lasting memory with me. Now there are plenty of these memories, so it would be impossible to list them all off. But I will make mention of one in particular that I consider one of my crowning achievements, and that honor goes to Splatoon 2. Now the Splatoon series is very much a multiplayer game, and I do occasionally play some rounds of it when I have the time. But I want to talk about the single player mode of the game, more specifically, the Octo Expansion DLC of Splatoon 2. To give some context, one of the boss fights you fight throughout the single-player mode of this is a one-on-one fight against the protagonist of the previous game. But it's not too difficult of a fight, easily manageable. However, once you've completed all of the content of the DLC, you unlock one more special fight. It's the same opponent, and the battle is fought in the same style, but there are more rounds, and their abilities are at their absolute maximum, even going beyond the limits of the game itself. And the worst part, you mess up, you have to start from the very beginning, no checkpoints at all. Thematically, the fight is to surpass the hero within, and oh boy are they correct. So I fought this fight over and over and over again, trying to win. I even gave up at some points thinking that I was never going to do it, but I persevered and eventually, this happened. Normally, I'm not pretty vocal when I play games, but when I saw the final hit connect, I screamed in joy. Finally, I had conquered one of, if not the hardest thing I had ever done in video games. So yeah, my coolest video game memory? I would give it to this moment. It's the best I've ever felt conquering a challenge like this. Sleepy Granny asks, if you were trapped on a deserted island, but were allowed to bring some video games, what 3 games would you bring? I'm going to answer this question like a top 3 list, so I'll start with game number 3 and work backwards to game number 1, since that one might be obvious to anyone who knows what game is my favorite. So game number 3 would be Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Without question, my favorite Fire Emblem game in the series. I've sunk hundreds of hours into multiple playthroughs of this game, and could easily see myself playing hundreds more if I was trapped on a deserted island with it. The level of detail in the story, as well as the fun gameplay, would keep me entertained for days. If I was allowed to bring this game's sequel, Radiant Dawn, along with me, I would, but if not, Path of Radiance wins this fight. Game number 2 would be Pokémon Crystal. I've enjoyed playing multiple Pokémon games for hours on end, but Pokémon Crystal holds the spot for being my favorite Pokémon game, closely followed by the Gen 5 games and Pokémon Colosseum and XD for anyone wondering. I have a lot of fond memories of playing Crystal when I was a kid, so much so that I find myself frequently nostalgic for that era of Pokémon. And playing Crystal reminds me of that time when I was a kid enjoying the world of Pokémon. And of course, the gameplay is very fun. If I was allowed to bring it with me to a deserted island, playing this game would help remind me of all the fond memories of my youth playing Pokémon, which might help keep me sane as I spend my days trapped on the island. And again, if I was allowed, I would bring all of the Generation 1 and 2 Pokémon games with me just so completing the Pokédex was possible. But if it's just one game, then Pokémon Crystal is the one I would bring every time. And now we reach game number 1. Some of you might have seen this coming from a mile away, considering I've mentioned this plenty of times in the past that this game is my favorite, but without question, I would bring, as game number 1, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Like Pokémon Crystal, Majora's Mask is very nostalgic for me. I spent a lot of time playing it as a kid, and even to this day, there are things that I'm learning about the game each time I play it. And it's that level of depth that would keep me immersed in playing it, maybe even letting me forget that I'm on a deserted island in the first place. Maybe it might inspire me to go on quests on the island itself and discover something new about it. Who knows? Now that explains why I would bring it with me to a deserted island. But why do I love this game so much, and why is it my favorite? Well, the next question will help me answer that no problem. The hero of everything asks, what is your favorite video game and why? So The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is my favorite game, but why is that? Well, there are multiple reasons for that. To begin, we're going to rewind time back to my childhood, where I wasn't as knowledgeable about video games as I am nowadays, which made video games way more magical and wondrous to me due to my lack of knowledge. I had been playing Ocarina of Time a fair bit by this point, and was thoroughly enjoying it, even managing to beat it once by this point, so it was fresh in my mind. Then one day, I came home from school to see that my older sibling had rented this brand new Zelda game, Majora's Mask. Naturally, I was curious, so I watched them play it, and even got a chance to play it for myself later on, and right off the bat, I was drawn to this game. One of the first things I liked was that it was a sequel to Ocarina of Time. With it elaborating further on the narrative that I was familiar with, I was happy to be back in that world again and continue playing as the same Link on a new journey. Now remember this, as I'm going to come back to this point later. Now another thing that I liked about this game was, despite the familiarity, there were so many concepts that were new to me. It was still like the linear story that I was used to with Ocarina of Time, but now the way it went about telling it was so much more open with how you went about it. More side quests and characters and different types of rewards were present. And because of that, if something sparked my curiosity, I wanted to learn everything there was about it. The world of Termina was just so vivid and new to me. I wanted to keep playing it. So I did. A lot. Now we'll fast forward to when I'm older, and when I could grasp why it is that I like this game as much as I do. The big thing is how, for a game as small as it is packed with so much detail. From the NPCs to the world of Termina itself, it felt as though every element had been thought about meticulously, and that level of detail is something I appreciate even to this day. And the game's mechanic of how you only have 3 days to do what you can before the world ends helps add not only a sense of urgency, but a unique level of immersion to the game. You see all of these people in the game going about their lives like it was a living, breathing world. You see their joys and sorrows, and you might even be able to help them with their struggles. Because of the game's mechanics, you are incentivized to learn about the world in a way that doesn't feel forced, and I very much like that about this game. And to swing back to my earlier point about how this game is a sequel to Ocarina, this game has an element of storytelling that I absolutely love. If we take a moment to talk about the timelines of the Zelda games, then this iteration of Link has already defeated Ganon and had him sealed in the adult timeline, which leads to the Wind Waker series of games, and has exposed Ganondorf's intentions and had him imprisoned without even fighting him in the child timeline, which is what leads to Twilight Princess. By this point, Link has solved his own world's problems. He is a kid who has fulfilled his destiny as the hero. So now what happens? What does he do with his life? Feeling as lost as he is, he goes to search for Navi, which begins the elements of Majora's Mask. But in this journey, we don't have Zelda or Ganondorf here to make it feel like a regular Zelda adventure. Sure, we have a great evil in Majora, but that's not tied to him in particular. And we have a world that is all new to Link, yet filled with familiar elements to him, such as characters and items. And most of the storytelling is about how to look inside yourself and live with happiness in your life, to learn more about yourself. So the way I see it, Majora's Mask isn't a typical hero's journey story, but a hero's after-story journey. A tale that explores what he can still learn about himself even after fulfilling his main duty as the hero. And it's that level of storytelling, alongside all of my previous points, that makes Majora's Mask my favorite game of all time, and one that I will keep coming back to whenever I have the chance. Okay, those were some pretty long questions, so why don't we hop back to some quicker questions for a bit, starting with Kulu Limpa 35 asking, what video game consoles do you own? So as far as standard consoles go, I currently own a Super Nintendo, an N64, a GameCube, a Wii U, and a Nintendo Switch. For handheld consoles, I currently own the original model of Game Boy, a Game Boy Color, a Game Boy Advance, a Nintendo DS Lite, a Nintendo 3DS, and a Nintendo 3DS XL. Why yes, that is a lot of Nintendo consoles. And to top it all off, I do own an Xbox 360 that I bought way back in the day. Now you might be thinking I have some favoritism towards Nintendo, and I'll be glad to explain it with this next question. Maria Sky 7579 asks, I noticed how often you play Nintendo games. Are they your favorite? While I will say they are my favorite, it does come down to familiarity with the franchises and the games that they produce that keeps me playing Nintendo games to this day. I've played many games that are on other consoles, and I do own an Xbox 360, which shows I have branched out to other games. So I have no hatred towards games on other consoles. But having grown up with Nintendo games my entire life, it's fair to say that I've got a fair bit of favoritism towards their games and their consoles. Now speaking of playing games on other systems, King Egos Duikana asks, do you play any PC games? It's very rare that I play games on PC, but I have played them. Mentioned already was the Panga game that I used to play way back in the day, and I do play Minecraft from time to time. But other than that, I tend to stick to console gaming. But who knows, maybe I'll do some PC games in the future for the channel. There are plenty of ideas out there. Princess in a Bottle asks, have you ever played any Metroid games? I've never played through any Metroid games, but it's not because I dislike them, far from it. I never really grew up playing Metroid games, but I did see plenty of commercials for the games. And I've watched plenty of people play Metroid games both for fun, as speedruns, and as randomizers, so I'm familiar with the titles and enjoy watching gameplay whenever I have the chance. I do understand why the games have so much appeal. Maybe there will be a day where I do play a Metroid game on the channel, but that might not be for some time. PowerPlay9422 asks, do you plan on doing any Digimon games? While I did watch the Digimon anime when I was younger, my interest in Digimon never extended past that. And with the Digimon video games not being on Nintendo consoles until somewhat recently, I never had any interest in playing the video games. However, that isn't to say I will never play them. I am always looking for ideas, and visiting the era of Digimon that I'm familiar with might make for a fun nostalgia trip. So while I will say that it won't happen anytime soon, I won't say it'll never happen. I will definitely keep the idea in mind. Wafflin Warden 1551 asks, have you ever played Pokemon Colosseum? Pokemon Colosseum and its sequel, Pokemon XD, are some of my favorite games to play. I've spent hundreds of hours on each of them, and have beaten both of them multiple times. In fact, I even have a playthrough of it on my channel. With all of the other runs on this channel, I could understand how it could be missed, so I'm going to play a few clips of that playthrough just to give you all a taste. I had moments like this. Not this time. It's kind of a good thing Misdreavus is in right now, because I can dodge the low kicks. There we go, that's good enough. And okay. So I know what I'm gonna do. Oh, thank goodness the rain's gone. Don't have to deal with that animation. Alright, items. Misdreavus will be the one to throw the Pokeballs. And you can synthesis. Here we go! Get in the ball now. Just get in the ball now. There we go! Just had to sing it a little song. And moments like this, right, I have a few hopes. It's all due to paralysis and how many chances it takes me to try to catch this Raikou. But if I'm lucky enough to catch this thing, that saves me so many headaches in the future. So come on, give me some luck. Throwing the best possible Pokeball for the moment. Here we go. 1, 2. Oh. Yeah. Oh my god! Oh my goodness, Ledyon. Can't believe you got as much bulk on you as you do. Alright. I've got no other choice. I have to try for it. So come on. Timer ball of good fortune, please. End this in the most fantastic way possible. Yes! Oh, that was clutch! Oh my god. 1 HP, final catch. It came down to that. And one of my favorite moments of all time, this. Hey, we broke through. And we hit Thunder. Oh, wow. Love this. Hey, thanks for boosting my attack again. I'm going to take care of that Loudred for sure. Just see what happens otherwise. Oh, geez. If Plusle hits itself in confusion, that's going to hurt. For anyone who doesn't know how it works, if you hit yourself in confusion, imagine hitting yourself with a 40 base power typeless attack that's on the physical side, so it will take your attack and defense into consideration. So if this hits... I have no words for what just happened there. That I think this is for real. I think that's the first time I've ever watched any Pokemon knock itself out from full health due to confusion. That is so awesome. Oh, that's a highlight right there. So if you or anyone else is interested, I'll leave a link in the description to the playlist of my Colosseum playthrough, so you and any of your friends who enjoy Pokemon Colosseum can watch to your heart's content. I hope you enjoy the run! Now this question is special because it was asked by two people. Xander on Autopilot 1369 and YTNEYH asks, have you ever seen the mod that combines Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask into one big cross-game randomizer? Ever thought of doing one? Oh, you bet I've heard of it! When I learned that a working version of this combo randomizer was available to play, I was ecstatic beyond belief. Finally, the two N64 Zeldas are able to be combined into one game. It's like a dream come true for any Zelda fan. So I'll go ahead and say that I will definitely be playing this on my channel at some point. I don't know if it will be the game I play upon my immediate return or at some point after that. Maybe I'll warm up with the individual games first. But it will be played, I can guarantee that. Now speaking of randomizers, the Composer Brothers ask, with how many randomizers you play, why do you love randomizers so much? Randomizers, to me, represent a fantastic way to revisit older games in a way that I feel is fresh and exciting. Even though I still have all of the knowledge from previous runs of the games that I play, I can use that knowledge in ways that I never would have thought to do so in a standard run of the game. One of the games I'll use to illustrate this point is with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I have played the original game so many times through that the entire process gets very predictable, and honestly, a little boring from time to time. I do the same gameplay starting strategies, the same dungeons in order, the same item acquisitions, and so on and so on. It's why I haven't played the original game for years after I did a full 100% run of the game. But with randomizers, that same linearity gets flipped on its head. Suddenly, I have to adapt to new strategies based on the items that I find or the end goals that I have. I have to completely rework the order I do things and often have to think on the fly as to where I go or what to prioritize. And it's that way of thinking that completely refreshes my love of the game, and more importantly, keeps it interesting for me. And even better, if I want to go back to the game after finishing one, the items will all be somewhere else, meaning the game is like brand new despite the familiarity. Randomizers add a unique level of replayability that I absolutely adore. And that's why I love playing randomizers and will continue to play them well into the future. Prancing Thief asks, will you ever try to speedrun games seriously? I remember the one Pokemon randomizer you did where you said you were playing it like a speedrun, so I was curious if you would ever do it with other games. While I won't say I never will, I'm someone who enjoys casually playing games more than speedrunning them. The reason I have the clock present in most of my randomizers I play is more for a point of reference. That way, people can see how long I've been playing it for. And for the Pokemon randomizer, I treated it like a speedrun simply because of the way I had it set up, and my goal was just to simply beat it faster than my practice round. So as it stands, unless I specifically state that I'm playing something as a speedrun, I'm just playing it casually with a timer present. But I'll keep the idea in mind if I feel it's interesting enough to try. Tricky Quizmaster asks, since you say you like Pokemon a lot, what are some of your favorite Pokemon? Now I'm someone who likes a lot of Pokemon, but I don't have all day to talk about each and every one of them. I will mention though that I did recently discover a website where you can make a grid of all of your favorite Pokemon, and it's updated to Generation 9 Pokemon. So if there is anyone out there who thinks that a casual video of me just talking about Pokemon I love and reminiscing about the old days of Pokemon is a fun idea, let me know, I'd be up for doing it. But as to what are some of my favorites, well, I'll do a very brief run through here. When I play Pokemon, I do try to vary which Pokemon I end up using, but there are types I tend to gravitate towards and make sure they are present on my team in some capacity, if possible. And these types end up producing some of my favorite Pokemon, which I will briefly go over. Fire types such as Typhlosion, Infernape, Delphox, and Armarouge. Flying types such as Dodrio, Swellow, Staraptor, and Talonflame. Water types such as Starmie, Lantern, Gorebyss, and Samurott. And electric types such as Ampharos, Manectric, Luxray, and Galvantula. And I will always have a fondness for the Evolutions. I like each and every one of them. Now I've saved my two favorite types for last so I can give them some special mentions here. So my second favorite type of Pokemon is the Grass type, and there are plenty that I consider my favorites, such as Venusaur, Parasect, Roserade, Lilligant, Decidueye, and the newest grass starter in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Meowscarada. And then we get to my favorite type, the Psychic type. I always try to include a Psychic type on my team if possible, such as Alakazam, Espeon, Gardevoir, Gallade, Reuniclus, and Hatterene. But without question, my all-time favorite Pokemon, which is conveniently both a Grass and Psychic type, Celebi. I've been a big fan of Celebi since Generation 3. I know it came out in Generation 2, but I never got to really know Celebi until Pokemon Colosseum in Generation 3. Since that game, I really wanted to have a Celebi, but since there were no events or possible ways for me to obtain one, I just used an action replay to get one. Yes, go ahead and call me a cheater, I wanted Celebi that badly, and no one was going to stop me. And I got to see Celebi in the Pokemon Forever movie, where I got to see it be all playful and energetic, something that made me like it even more. And when I got to see it in action in Pokemon Colosseum as a usable Pokemon, I was happy to see that it had that personality attached to its animations. And then, when I learned that the Virtual Console Pokemon Crystal game implemented the original Celebi event into the English releases of the game, I was so glad to be able to experience obtaining Celebi in its original manner. And I even dedicated time to try and catch a shiny of it, which is something I rarely do for any Pokemon. My fondness for Celebi stretched that far, and I am glad that I managed to find and catch it. It was one of the happiest moments I ever had playing Pokemon. So with all of that said, Celebi is, without question, my favorite Pokemon. Now speaking of shiny Pokemon, Jerkbird asks, do you shiny hunt Pokemon? There was a point in my life where I did try to shiny hunt Pokemon, but that was very short-lived. The last time I tried to shiny hunt something was when I was trying to get the shiny Celebi I mentioned before. And before that, it was Generation 6's Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire games. With the increased odds of finding shiny Pokemon present in the newer games, I thought it would be a fun thing to try, so I went and attempted a few shiny hunts on some legendary Pokemon. The first few went pretty well, appearing in less than 200 encounters for the few that I did. But then I went to try to capture a shiny Ho-Oh, and that was the straw that broke this camel's back. I attempted over 3,000 soft resets trying to get that elusive shiny. Thankfully, I did eventually get it, but it was a very arduous process. I had friends comment on how it was like I was going insane trying to find it, and I agreed with them. It was taking up a lot of my free time. So when I did eventually get it, I gave up trying to shiny hunt Pokemon unless I knew I wanted it. Would I ever do it again though? I wouldn't say never, but I want to make sure I have the proper free time to do it. High Priority Postman asks, what are some of your favorite and least favorite genres of games? Well, my favorite genre of game would definitely have to be role-playing games, if it wasn't already apparent. I'm someone who loves numbers, and role-playing games are, at their core, numbers games. They can fit into action, adventure, or strategy genres, but RPGs are definitely the type of game that I love to play the most. Now my least favorite? That would probably be horror games. Sure, some games I play can have horror elements in them, but a game that's specifically a horror game? No thanks, I'll pass. I don't like getting jump scared or frightened. Nope, can't make me do it. Nope, I'm not going to do it. Goodbye. The Guardian Deities asks, you mentioned before in one of your recent Zelda randomizers about how there are moments in games you enjoy replaying that you dread playing because they're slow or not fun. What are some of your other examples? To give some context for anyone who doesn't know, the instance I mentioned was in the Forest Temple of Ocarina of Time, where you're going through the rooms at a good pace, only to reach the slow block pushing part and it just breaks all of the fun and kills the pace you were going at. Now that's just one example, so here are some of my examples from other times that I've seen in games that I like to play over and over again. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. If there is one chapter in the game I dread, it's Chapter 4. Sure, the beginning portion of the chapter is fine, and the final boss fight is very fun, but the amount of backtracking you do is terrible. It's what you do for half the chapter. I dread it whenever I play this game again. Pokemon Gold, Silver, Crystal, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, The Rocket Hideout, and Radio Tower Takeover. Wow, that was needlessly long to say. You know what else is needlessly long? The entirety of the Rocket storyline in the later portion of the game. For the Rocket Hideout, You're often very over-leveled for that portion of the game, meaning you're just wasting time trying to get through it as fast as possible. And for the radio tower, the sheer amount of backtracking you have to do to get places just eats up a lot of time, especially when all you want to do is get to the 8th gym and continue the actual game. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Chapter 17. This one doesn't seem so bad. What's one chapter? Well, my friends, this one chapter is split into 4 separate sub-chapters, each of them a full-length level in the game, and each of the levels before the last one doesn't amount to anything of note. Whenever I play this game, I just try to get through this portion of the game as fast as I can. And for the last point here, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, the egg rescuing section. When it comes to the parts of the story where you are trying to get your way to the temples, the swamp, mountain, and canyon stories are filled with just enough action to keep the pace going. But when it comes to the ocean, it's just a bunch of swimming back and forth through 2 different sub-areas, stealthing your way through places just to acquire a bunch of eggs and return them to a central location. If you have enough bottles, then you can do it in as few as 1 trip to each sub-area. But if you have any fewer than needed, then you are forced to backtrack multiple times just to get what is needed to advance the story. And those are just a few examples that I've got. Do you have any others? Let me know in the comments. Gravedigger Dompe asks, what is the hardest game you have ever beaten? Now, I could just mention my Splatoon 2 moment again, as that was one of the hardest challenges I've ever done. However, that was just extra content to a game that I had already beaten, so I'm not going to count that. No, what I would consider the hardest game I've ever beaten is Diddy Kong Racing DS for the Nintendo DS. Now let me tell you, I already have my issues with the game itself. I feel as though all they had to do was port the game as it was, and the port would have been perfect. But they tacked on the touchscreen and microphone mechanics, and suddenly it becomes a much more frustrating game than it needed to be. So much so that when I eventually made it to the final boss of the game, I struggled so hard to defeat him. Do you remember how hard it was to defeat games as a kid, not because the game itself was difficult, but because you yourself were still inexperienced at playing games? That's how this game made me feel again, and I was already an adult! There were points I was going to give up with this, but I did eventually win the race and beat the full game. But it lives on in my head as one of the hardest games I have ever beaten. A Terrible Fate asks, what is your least favorite video game? Without question, that honor goes to The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks for the Nintendo DS. Okay, to give a little context, I did not mind playing The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass, which is the prequel to Spirit Tracks. I thought it was a solid game that did try to use the touchscreen mechanics as best as it could, and the gameplay itself worked well in tandem with it, so I had no complaints with Phantom Hourglass. But when it comes to Spirit Tracks, oh boy, do I have some thoughts about this game. Now, to be clear, there are some things I do like about the game. The music is great, the Tower of Spirits was a much better concept for a dungeon you revisit multiple times, and the fact that Zelda joins you on the adventure was a very nice touch. And when you are off the train, which, mind you, is the thing the game is named after, and playing the game like normal, it's no different than Phantom Hourglass, and I was alright with that. But that is where my praise ends. The train being your primary transportation around the world is heavily restrictive. The boat you use in the previous game gives you so much more freedom of exploration, but here, you're just selecting a destination to go to and basically waiting. The obstacles on the tracks serve only to make you pay attention to the game, which makes you notice how boring it actually is. And even worse, you can get detoured due to said distractions, making the travel time take even longer than necessary. And not to mention, there are so many bring someone or something from point A to point B types of side quest that it not only gets boring, but it just exacerbates the previous point about how travel is terrible. And the cherry on top of this disappointing cake is how much I hate the final boss. Specifically, the beginning portion where you are restricted to only using touch controls. The purpose of this section of the fight is to protect Zelda as she channels energy. As that is going on, you have to keep her safe from incoming projectiles that would harm her. Doesn't sound too bad in theory, right? The catch? If she gets hit, you have to start the entire section over from the beginning. Okay, that alone wouldn't be so bad, but the section goes on for much longer than it should. But the worst part of it all? In order to deflect the projectiles, you have to use your sword. To swing your sword, you have to swipe across the touchscreen. If you could press a button to swing your sword, I'm certain that I would have had no issue with this fight. But because you are restricted to swiping across the touchscreen, an action that is much more delayed and imprecise than a button press, I ended up failing it over and over and over again. So much so that I gave up entirely and have never played the game since. I'm sure that if I did go back and try again, I could eventually do it. But with how much the entire game left a bad taste in my mouth, I'm not sure I'd go back to it anytime soon. So that's why Spirit Tracks is my least favorite game I have ever played. And now we have Night Riders 2 asking, what was the most disappointing game you've ever played? I'm going to assume this isn't like the previous question, where I was disappointed due to hating the game. So, I'm going to answer this question with a game that I didn't hate, but was disappointed all the same. And that is Little Dragon's Cafe for the Nintendo Switch. Now again, I didn't think it was a bad game. I would say that there are just as many good things about the game as there were bad. But when the bad things were noticeable, it did hamper the experience a fair bit. To give context, the structure of the game is set up pretty linearly. Each day in game, you go out into the world, collect ingredients, bring them back to your cafe, where you and your staff feed the customers. Rinse and repeat every day. In order to advance the story, you have to figure out the recipe that can solve the issue for the current story, while also bringing in enough business to achieve a designated milestone. Seems pretty manageable. In the beginning, it happens fast enough to let you progress through the story, but by the middle of the game, it feels as though the game is dragging on much more than it should have been. When I reached the point where it felt like I had fully explored the world, I just wanted to get the game over with, and I was just over halfway through the game. I eventually got to a point where I just went into the world and put my controller down to let time pass normally, because your cafe does continue to run autonomously even if you aren't present, so they can continue to do business until it closes, in which case your cafe's progress towards the next story portion will properly build. The big issue is that it takes close to 10 real-world minutes for the day to progress to a point where you can close the cafe down for the night. And I didn't do this waiting bit just once or twice. I did it a few dozen times. If half of the game was spent not playing, then is there really a point? Now to be clear, I know this game's strength lies within its characters, as this is a more story-driven game. And it does this pretty well. But the problem is that I wanted more game to go with it. I might as well have been a visual novel and I might have enjoyed this even more. So for those reasons, Little Dragon's Cafe is a game that I definitely don't hate, but it left me the most disappointed. Mooncutting Swordsman asks, if you were given the chance to remake any video game, which would it be? I have often thought about this question with two particular video games in mind, and that would be Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and its sequel, Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. For Path of Radiance, I would want to make some changes to some of its gameplay elements based on some elements that I've seen from future Fire Emblem games, as well as its own sequel. For Radiant Dawn, I would want to make a big overhaul to the cohesiveness of the story and maybe make some elements of the game flow better than what it already does. However, it would be difficult to do what I'd want to do without changing how things would work in the other game. So if I was given a chance to remake games, I would love to take a crack at remaking these two games together and see what I could come up with. Okay, we're nearing the end of this. I've got a few more fun questions here, then I've saved two special questions for last. So here we go. Honey and Darling asks, what is your ideal vacation destination? To me, taking a vacation means getting away from all the craziness of civilization and relaxing at a nice, quiet destination. So my ideal vacation would be an old-fashioned cottage secluded from civilization. Just a place to get away from modern times and simply unwind at my own leisure. Maybe it would even be on the waterfront? Ooh, the waves would sound so relaxing. Tattletale asks, if you were a fantasy creature, what would you be? If I were a fantasy creature, I would definitely love to be a dragon. I've always liked how dragons have been depicted as these grand, mystical creatures that can wield many different powers, as well as how they are both feared and respected because of their great power. Maybe due to the lightning elements of my channel, I'd be a lightning dragon? Or if I diverged from that, I could be a wind dragon. Or even because I like winter, I could be an ice dragon? I did say I like watching snowstorms earlier. Yeah, if I was a fantasy creature, I would definitely love to be a dragon. Bankmaster of Time 5000 asks, if you had a time machine, what year would you go to? Some people might think this is a weird choice, but I would love to take a time machine back to the first few years of my life. I'm sure some people out there might understand where I'm coming from, but it feels weird to me that there's a large chunk of my life that I have either zero recollection of or have completely forgotten about as I grew up. If I had the chance to, I would want to go back and watch those portions of my life again. I wouldn't try to interfere with any of it. I would just watch and experience those parts of my past again so I can keep those memories with me. Just so I can feel like I know all there is to know about me, both past and present. Punished Monkey asks, if you had a superpower, what would it be? I've always wished I had the ability to fly. I've seen so many shows where people have the superpower or the ability to fly, and I have always wished I could do the same. I wouldn't even care whether it was through the ability to defy gravity or growing wings that would grant me the ability to do so. If I had the ability to fly around anywhere, I would want it. Sir Loin of Rock asks, do you like pineapples on pizza? Oh, I feel like I'm gonna open a big can of worms with this one, but I love pineapples on pizza. I'm a big fan of the sweetness that pineapples bring to pizza, especially as a nice complement to all of the saltier components that are usually on it. If I can get a pizza with pineapple on it, you can bet I will do it. And if you are of a differing opinion and want to tell me otherwise, I invite you to leave a comment below telling me of your disdain for pineapples on pizza and why I'm weird for being this way. Just after you finish watching the rest of the special, okay? Ballad of the Windfish asks, do you play any other trading card games, or TCGs, besides Yu-Gi-Oh? While I don't play it as often as I used to, I do still occasionally play Magic the Gathering. I almost exclusively play Commander format, and have had many great memories with my friends playing the game. I even have all of the decks I used to play with still ready to go in case someone asks me to play a round or two. And while it was more short-lived, I did play the Pokemon TCG when it was in the black and white era. I played the game online from the Pokemon TCG website when it was still in an early build of what the website is nowadays. And I had a blast playing it. I stopped playing once I started getting busier with my life, but for that brief period, I had a lot of fun. Mask of the Sun asks, what are some of your favorite board games to play? I've played plenty of board games, so there are many that I like, but some of my favorite ones are Ticket to Ride, Carcassonne, Stone Age, and Sheriff of Nottingham. But if we're going with what might be my favorite board game, then it would have to be the first one I ever owned, Pokemon Master Trainer. This game fills me with a lot of nostalgia every time I play it. It's like I get to re-experience the joy of being introduced to the world of Pokemon for the first time every time I get to play this game. And with its unique level of difficulty, it's sure to create some interesting experiences amongst all of the players. Children of the Moon asks, are you a socks and sandals kind of person? Okay, really getting the feeling that I'm going to open another can of worms here, but I do wear socks with sandals occasionally. I just don't understand why it bugs people so much. I mean, sure, sandals are meant to be an easy slip into footwear, but what does it matter if someone is wearing socks with them or not? So yeah, I'll wear socks with sandals. It's never bugged me before. The Loyal Bartender asks, do you drink coffee or tea? Actually, I drink neither. I don't hate them, but they've never really appealed to me. Most tea just tastes like hot water whenever I have it, so I don't really bother with it. And I've had a few cups of coffee in my life, but I've never sat down and worked out how I want to have it should I want to drink it. So if I was to drink one of them, it would be coffee, but as of right now, I don't drink either of them. Alright, we have nearly reached the end. There are 2 more questions left, and I've saved the best ones for last. The Kegmaster asks, what are some of your favorite moments from your content and why? Since I've had plenty of amazing moments from my videos, I figure I could show off a mini montage of clips to answer this one. I'll leave some notes on screen as to why they're my favorites, so enjoy the clips! I really curse the fact I would have missed this. Because I know I did Goron and Zora and Human Link fairly early on. But I know Deku came late, so I don't remember if I actually did it. Okay, was I right? Was I wrong? Ah! Oh! Oh! hurt. That hurt so much. Oh, that hurts so much. But I got the key. Let's end this nightmare. And there it is. Potential member number 6, Luvdisc. So gonna do what I do best. Although, I'm gonna try the first ball Ultra Ball, just in case. But I am seriously considering a Master Ball for this Luvdisc if this doesn't work. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. This is gonna be the maddest thing I've ever done using a Master Ball. You're mine, Luvdisc! Man, I shouldn't have this much power. I have Master Ball to Luvdisc. Thank you. Being able to Z-target while putting on the irons. Is that what I think it is? Is that it? Is this the answer that I have been waiting for? Is this the Golden Gauntlets? Please be it, please be it, please be it, please be it. Do not be a fake! Oh, it's a fake! Oh, and I gotta wait to get up from this before I get ice trapped. No! Ice trapped, you jerk. Watch, this is now gonna say the Shadow Temple is useless, or Forest Temple is required. It's gonna be one of those two things now. I know it is. That's not the right way, it's this way. I feel so salty right now. Come on, get low enough. There we go. Also, yeah, carry me. Alright, please tell me what I want to know. No! The Forest Temple does have it! I don't have to do Shadow then! No! That means I was having to figure out the puzzle. Oh, I feel really salty now. Oh, let's just go do the ice cavern. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. I mean, I had to go into Shadow Temple to get the silver, so sure, fine, that works. But that just bites. Oh yeah, boulders. Oh, that kinda hurt. Okay, so we'll bring out an Axe Raider. Then we'll Monster Reborn something. Maybe I hit something good out of your... Oh, looks like Machine King is the winner. I have an idea. Oh, change of heart. I want to try something here. I'm going to use the bell. Blow up the Mystical Elf. Can I activate Last Will? I can activate Last Will. Oh man, that feels good. And then we'll go this. Oh, that was a turn. Wait a minute, did you just summon a bunch of monsters in one turn? Yeah, I can't find any problem with that. Yeah, because technically all of that was legal. Oh, I'm getting an adrenaline high right now. That was so much fun to do. Definitely the best duel yet. Oops, that was close. And just enough time. Camera. Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right. This is something I could have gotten really early, so it's still possible this is something good. Yes! An elemental arrow! Finally! Oh. Every emotion ever right now. Oh my goodness, I got an elemental arrow. Finally! Get marked on my tracker, please. There we go. Thank you. Oh, finally. I have a means of progress. I'm gonna need a plan B here because it's gonna be kind of awkward. Could I just eke the side of that torch, or is it gonna play not fair? Nope. Hey! That works! Okay, okay. I like this. Okay. Now could... Hey! I'm learning things! Oh, that is so cool! Okay, and I know this trick because this is how you normally play it. Yeah! Deku Mask? Who needs a Deku Mask? Oh, and even better, you gave me guaranteed thunders. Okay. Ooh. In this situation, I can have some fun. I can have some real fun. There are some things in this world that give me joy. Being able to hit a flying Pokemon with thunder, that's one of them. Yeah, so that won't work. It has to be a bow shot. Yeah, there's no way I can climb up. Maybe if I do this. I'm actually getting, like, real technical with my fingers right here. You can do it! Oh, yes! Oh, this is the best day I've ever played Ocarina of Time. Okay. Let's see how this works. Proceed to main phase 2. Well then. Why don't we take good old Blue Eyes White Dragon and have it face off against you? Like I didn't see this coming from a mile away. Oh no! Oh no! Oh my... Kaiba, stop! Kaiba, stop! Cease! Desist! Was Kaiba that mad that I took his blue eyes? Wow! You just went ham on me with that one! If you had stopped at Blue Eyes Ultimate, I would have won. Oh wow, I'm not even upset. That was amazing. I'm hearing the footsteps now, so Cafe should be... I just saw the model passing right there. So it's cool to know that things are actually occurring outside of the rooms you're in. But here we go. It's the shortened cutscene, but it still hits just the same. Aw, and Link gets a hug. Oh, Music Randomizer, I love you so much. Oh, that was perfect. Good times. So what did you think? Were these some of your favorite moments as well? Were there moments that I missed? Let me know down below. And now we have reached the final question. Major AS Mask asks, with all of this talk of games and gaming, why do you love games so much? So games have been a big part of my life ever since I was a kid. Due to my introverted nature, it was difficult for me to interact with others. As such, it made it difficult for me to open up to others socially. But with games, it was easier to help me break the ice with others and open up to them more. And the more often I played games with others, the more I learned about others and myself. Then, when video games started to become more prevalent in my life, it gave me a hobby to talk about with others. When I was a kid, Pokemon was a big topic of conversation at the time, with the anime and the games having been just released. And with how much I liked Pokemon in video games, it gave me something to talk about with others. Sure, not everyone was into it as much as I was, but there were some that were, and it helped me get along with them better. Games were helping me come out of my introverted shell and helping me get to know other people better. And it was something that I wanted to do now. Things were certainly taking a turn for the better for me. And even as I became an adult, I still maintained this fondness for games, but now that fondness for games has grown even more than before. When I play with others, I don't see it as just people sitting around a table or a TV playing games. For me, it's now a clash of minds and spirits. Every person that I play with has their own way of playing a game, and from these interactions, I get to learn more about the people I'm playing in a way that is more than just simply playing a game. This might sound a little cheesy, but this goes beyond just the person or people sitting in front of me. No, this goes well beyond that. When I play games, I get to see the very soul of my opponents. How they do their plays, how they act in certain situations, how they act when they win, how they act when they lose, how they enjoy playing games, and so many other things. And they get to see how I act as well. We get a chance to really see each other for who we are at the deepest level. And it's at this deepest level that we all get to understand each other for who we really are at our core, without any biases or impressions towards the other. And when the competition ends, some part of each other is now with the other person. Our worlds are now linked in a unique and fascinating way. And it's because of that understanding where I realized what I really love about gaming, and why it's my life mantra to this day. Games bring people together. It's because of games that I learned to talk to people. It's because of games that I wanted to open up to others. It's because of games that I can really get to know others and be friends with them. And that has continued to be true even with this channel. Because of games, every person who has interacted with the content of my channel has had a part of me become a part of their lives. And every person who has watched my videos, subscribed, and/or left a comment has now become a part of my life. Even if we've never met, or even if I've never interacted with you, you have still helped enrich my life even more. And now that we've reached the end of the Q&A special, I think it's the perfect time to say this to all of you. Thank you for being a part of my life. And with that, we have reached the end of the Q&A special. If you would like to see more, you can check out part 2 of the special where I discuss ideas that I will have for upcoming games on this channel. Check the link in the description below. Before I go, I just want to give one last round of thanks to the users who submitted questions for the special. Strobo308, Powerplay9422, Xander on Autopilot 1369, YTNEYH, Maria Sky 7579, and Wafflin Warden 1551. Thank you so much for your questions, I really appreciate it. And to all of my subscribers, thank you very much for your support, it really means a lot to me. And here's to more fun experiences in the future. So until next time, as I always say, take care, stay safe, and have a wonderful day.